Hey everyone, it's Danny Haifong here, inside, unable to go live, but I wanted to get another update on the Israel-Iran war situation. I'll be back live again soon, so stay tuned for this. But let's begin with the latest updates. So the Dayan camp, the military intelligence school of Israel, was targeted by next generation missiles by Iran, and the Mossad headquarters ended up being targeted too.
The U.S. intel view that among the targets were Israeli airfields, but also, and this is crucial, the headquarters of Mossad, the International Intelligence Service of Israel, which is inside Tel Aviv. It's in the northern part of Tel Aviv, but it's in the city. It's in a densely populated area. And of course, the concern is if you're firing, even though Iran might consider that a military target, it is in a densely populated city.
Now, the damage is hard to verify because Israel has a extreme and incredibly deep censorship campaign right now. But according to reports, this is what we have. We have 4 missiles targeting the Mossad headquarters near the Gilad camp. We have about missiles landing 600 to 1,000 meters to the actual headquarters. So there wasn't a direct hit, but one hit near a roadway, another struck facilities at the Herzog camp, a third, a water treatment plant was struck, and the fourth, a high-rise building was struck. Now, while these strikes were not as precise as many of Iran's have been, the big news here is that Israel was unable to detect any of these, indicating that Iran is using higher and more advanced weapons and missiles in their latest strikes, even though they are getting smaller in number. So Iran has also reported conducting about 550 drone operations since the beginning of Operation True Promise 3, so over 100 per day, and they were able to destroy with these drone operations a long-range Israeli air defense system. Reports also say that another F-35 was downed over Iran, an Israeli flown F-35. We also see missile fragments in northern Israel. Another big development is that more and more we are seeing Israeli air defense interceptors fail. They're becoming exhausted. Video has emerged of this, and this could explain why there is panic all across the Israeli government as well as the United States government over how to respond to this in a rapid fashion. Now, we are still waiting for confirmation over how advanced these weapons are becoming that Iran is using these missiles, but it is quite clear that Iran has said that they are going to continue to move up the escalation ladder, use their more advanced hypersonic weapons over the course of this conflict, and that they're ready for a long war. Tel Aviv remains under heavy fire. Despite the fact that these missile strikes are becoming fewer in number, all of Tel Aviv is essentially shut down. The residents of Tel Aviv are constantly and consistently having to go back and forth from bomb shelters. Effectively, Iran, through Operation True Promise 3, has taken out this capital as a viable center of any kind of activity, especially economic. So these are significant developments that need to be noted. Iran has said that they will continue their missile campaign, that this is really just the beginning, and they have dismissed all reports coming out of the Western mainstream media, Israeli media, that their missile systems are becoming exhausted. There are many theories about why Iran has decided to scale down the volume of their strikes. Some have said that this is psychological warfare, that they want to lull Israel asleep. Others have said they might be planning bigger operations, unpredictable operations that will strike at Israeli military and intelligence centers hard, and that they are trying to follow an unpredictable pattern that will ensure that Israeli air defense systems are not only exhausted but confused, and that the Israeli military is unable to predict their next moves. So all of this is very viable, of course, and very understandable. However, there are dangers here that are mounting. One of the dangers that Iran faces is not only the civilian casualties, that have hit Iran. But also, it appears that Iran is having struggles with the infiltration of the Mossad and, of course, Israeli intelligence and the Israeli military into the ranks of their highest military channels. So Iran has, according to Israeli media, this has not been confirmed yet, but Ali Shamdani, who replaced Ali Rashid, one of Iran's top military chiefs, was killed in an airstrike overnight. So this is probably the biggest danger that Iran faces at the time. But Operation True Promise 3, it appears, given that the beginning of this conflict saw Israel take out a large number of Iran's military leadership, it continues. So these decapitation strikes are not stopping Iran's overall military operation, and they are committing to an ongoing and long war with Israel and the United States if the United States should join in. So Tel Aviv is effectively shut down. Israeli military intelligence and intelligence as a whole is now a target of Operation True Promise 3. The missiles are becoming more advanced, they're becoming faster, and it's unclear how many missiles Iran has, because Iran has reported thousands at times. Some believe 150,000 of different types in various missiles. However, regardless, the most important information here is that Iran is ready to continue this operation and is not seeking capitulation. However, Wall Street Journal reported in the last 24 hours that Iran is indeed seeking capitulation, which was rejected wholeheartedly by the Iranian government. So there's been a lot of activity. These missile campaigns and operations from the larger Operation True Promise 3 are going to continue, and we will continue to report on them here. Now, a big part of all of this, a big development, has been the war crime that Israel committed in the last 24 hours against the Iranian Broadcasting Corporation. Friend of this program, Mohammed Marandi, actually was participating in an interview while this operation was conducted. So the Iranian Broadcasting Corporation was hit by Israel. One was killed. There was video that surfaced of a reporter of the Iranian Broadcasting Corporation having to leave as the strike hit and dust and debris came into the building. And just minutes later, after the dust had settled, she came back and reported on the situation. And this has received a hero's welcome, not only in Iran, but also much of the world, which sees these dirty tactics as not just a war crime, but also just a complete deplorable act that only worsens Israel's image in the world. So Israel is now targeting the media as part of a regime change operation, which, as you may remember, this same playbook was applied to Yugoslavia, to Libya, where media stations were targeted as a way to cut off people from information coming from Iran or coming from the targeted state, leading to a huge gap and leading also to a psychological operation, which essentially amounts to a war on the truth. So that was one of the biggest strikes that Israel had, both the military leadership once again taking a hit, as well as the media. Now, there is a lot of panic right now happening, both inside of Israel and the United States. And the United States was participating in the G7. Donald Trump was in Canada, and he abruptly left. He said that after the dinner with leaders of the G7, he was going to leave for obvious reasons. And at the same time, he tweeted out or posted on Truth Social that Tehran had to evacuate immediately, that it was a waste of life, that Iran cannot have a nuclear bomb. He also went after Tucker Carlson on Truth Social. This was a very chaotic scene, and the fog of war is incredibly high. The United States, at the same time as Donald Trump was tweeting all of these very incendiary and threatening Truth Social posts, we had the USS Nimitz, as well as other destroyers, head to the Middle East. We also have carrier strike groups and tankers also heading to the region, in an apparent show that the United States is ready to enter and participate in this conflict at some level. There's a lot of debate right now happening about what level that will be. Some Israeli media tried to announce that the U.S. had actually participated in strikes on Iran, and the U.S. shot those down. Israeli media has also said that, and U.S. media has also said that the United States will eventually enter the war and that preparations were being made as we speak. The U.S. has also shot that down to a certain degree. However, what the U.S. has not shot down, and what Pete Hegseth said on Fox News, was that they were preparing to defend, quote unquote, their assets in the region should Iran attack them. Now, the biggest development here, and there's two big developments here when it comes to U.S. desperation, is that Donald Trump said that he is looking for more than a ceasefire. He rejected all claims, because some claims were being made, that he was preparing a team to in an emergent fashion, speak with Iran's officials and set up a meeting between Steve Witkoff and the Iranian Foreign Minister, Mr. Araghchi. That was rejected by Donald Trump himself, but he did say that he's looking for more than a ceasefire, which has once again raised threats that the United States is going to enter this war of regime change in a more direct fashion. Of course, we know that the United States is supplying Israel with logistical support, is always supplying Israel with military support, and now the question is, how much more will the United States get involved? That is an evolving situation. And in another act of desperation, another act of what I think shows the panic happening in Washington, Donald Trump rejected Tulsi Gabbard's assessment during the annual threat assessment, and something that she has stood by, which is that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon. He said he doesn't care what Tulsi Gabbard said, and that he is going to continue to believe that Iran has a nuclear weapon or nuclear weapons, and he is going to continue to respond in kind based on this misinformation, apparently. And so this really represents, I believe, a huge an exposure of how desperate and panicked the United States is right now in trying to manage the situation. There's a lot of fog of war, there's a lot of indecisiveness, it appears, and there is a lot of uncertainty about the United States' possible response. So this is essentially where the situation is at the moment. Iran is going to continue its missile attacks. It's going to ensure that Operation True Promise 3 continues. We have seen that Israeli air defense systems are becoming exhausted and they're becoming targeted. Israel is demonstrating that it does not have the capabilities, although it continues to claim it does, to significantly hit Iran's nuclear facilities. It does have the capabilities, however, to terrorize civilians. It is doing that. It is now striking media. But overall, despite its claim of air superiority, Iran is conducting daytime missile strikes on Israel, which are causing damage, which have the entirety of Israel essentially on high alert, and it is disrupting the quote-unquote state of Israel's ability to function as a society. And this, I believe, is part of Iran's war of attrition and what it hopes to accomplish as this escalates. And Iran is looking at this as a long war. It's not looking at this as a short war. It sees that the escalation is being managed in large part by what the United States does. And that will determine a lot about how Iran is able to respond, what Iran should do, and we are going to have to stay tuned about all of this. And the U.S. side, however, as we see the embarrassments mount, as we see air defense systems fail from Israel, as we see Iranian missiles continue to be launched into Israeli territory, and as we see not just casualties, because Iran isn't going after huge numbers of casualties, but as we see the targets become more and more impactful, both in terms of their symbolic character, but also in terms of their actual impact. We are seeing now the scrambling of both the United States and Israel to prepare for a larger war. Iran says it is prepared for this. Iran has said that it is ready to target assets all across the region should the United States get more involved. So we are going to have to see now, in my estimation, it would be a disaster for the Trump administration to enter this war in full. And also, in my estimation, because the embarrassments have already been had, because Israel has already faced one of the most humiliating moments in its much vaunted and horrific genocidal history and colonial history, it would be, in many instances, an immediate reaction from the United States if the U.S. were in a better position and were feeling confident. Mind you, the United States does not delay, does not wait, does not think strategically. When it is able to strike immediately and with major force, it does. So many, actually, even in the Western mainstream media, on Fox News, otherwise, people like Steve Bannon have intimated that the United States under Donald Trump would have likely struck already. Now, I'm not going to underestimate the ability of the United States to commit horrific war crimes, enter this war, and do a lot of damage to Iran. But it appears the hesitancy that the United States is demonstrating under Donald Trump right now is because there are a lot of considerations that have to be taken into account. One, if the United States does enter this war in full, it has the potential to destroy, and I'm going to say this very clearly, destroy the world economic system, the world economy. We will see recession, we will see oil prices go up to levels that we have not seen in generations, if ever. We will see economic calamity, and we will see a drop in public trust and legitimacy in the United States and worldwide of the United States in general. This is something that Donald Trump will have difficulty in navigating and managing at such an early point in his administration. Of course, the Iran war hawks, people like Lindsey Graham, they don't care about this. They are seeing an opportunity right now to try to strike as quickly and as forcefully as possible to commit regime change. They are looking at the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. They see him as the head of the snake. They want to kill him. They want to assassinate him. They want to send a message to the Iranian people that their government, that their political system is not only under threat, but it is going to be destroyed imminently. And so this is psychological terror. This is terrorism. We see Israel committing acts of terrorism in the last 24 hours. They have focused a lot on detonating car bombs and moving in a way where they strike at the heart of the Iranian people in a manner that is supposed to send a message that they should be afraid and that their fear should lead them to want to destroy the Iranian government, overthrow it. Now, it appears that the Iranian people are not interested in this. We don't see any evidence of protests, of color revolution activity in Iran. This likely indicates that the Iranian people, at the very least, are uniting around the current government in a state of war. Now, this was always likely going to be the case. The Iranian people have been suffering decades of sanctions and war threats and actual war. Remember, after the Iranian Revolution of 1979, the Iran-Iraq War started immediately, and the U.S. backed, some say the United States backed both sides, but they sent weapons of mass destruction to the Iraqi government. This led to horrible casualties and losses on both sides. But this was right after the Iranian Revolution in 1979, and Iran came out of it, and they were able to rebuild and continue developing their society under sanctions. So Iran, at this moment, both its people and its government are demonstrating that they are not bowing down, they are not capitulating to Israel or the United States. And at this very moment, the United States is pondering whether it is going to get more heavily involved. And what would that look like? Well, I've said on this program before that the United States is facing a big predicament in that as it sends its naval destroyers, as it sends its aircraft carriers, and as it sends its tankers, etc., to the region, it has to factor in that Iran may even be holding back right now because it is saving its most advanced weaponry and its most effective missile stockpiles for the event of a wider and bigger conflict. So this could mean that the United States has to take into account what happens when U.S. F-16s or F-35s or whatever it may be of aircraft, the USS Nimitz and other naval destroyers, what happens when Iran targets them via their air defense systems or their advanced hypersonic missiles. Because if the United States loses even just one of these in conflict, it will be an incredibly damaging scene and blow to American exceptionalism, and the ruling circles, the foreign policy establishment, will likely want to escalate further, and this could mean a potentially nuclear war situation where the U.S. considers dropping a nuclear bomb on Iran. Given that danger, because if the United States goes down that path, it's the end of Donald Trump, it might signal and spark widespread unrest in the United States and worldwide. All of this is deeply dangerous for the United States, not to mention the fact that the U.S. military is exhausted. Its air defense systems are exhausted. They have used up much of their weaponry and whatever they had in the Ukraine conflict. And of course, there are forces inside of the U.S. foreign policy establishment that see that if they waste everything they have left on a war of regime change on Iran, they'll have nothing for China. So this is the U.S. military, U.S. empire, outstretched. We are seeing its decline, and we are seeing the panic that Operation True Promise 3 has laid bare on the U.S. empire and, of course, Israel with it. So we're going to have to see where all of this goes. It is still an evolving situation, but we know now that Iran is rolling out more advanced weaponry. We know that Iran is scaling down the volume of its attacks, how big they are in one sitting, but they are using more tactical operations on Israeli intelligence, for example. They're also using very advanced ways of fooling Israel into shooting decoys and other kinds of distractions that have been able to preserve Iran's stockpiles and its facilities that are holding them. So all this is to say is that Iran continues to fight on. The government is still intact. Many are wondering whether this can go on in the same way, and it's my assessment that Iran appears very much prepared for a long conflict, not only with Israel, but potentially the United States, depending on how the United States actually responds to this. And under the Trump administration, we have seen that this unpredictability is very dangerous. It could lead to escalations like the one that we are talking about here. But, and we have to say but here, while the dangers are very real, let us not be fooled that Iran losing its military leadership, being hit in the way that it has against civilians isn't impactful. One, it sends a really stark message to the Iranian people that they have choices to make. Either get ready and fight in a war or capitulate. That's a very difficult choice for people to make, and it's a symbol of the Iranian people's heroism that we see, for example, the reporter of the Iranian Broadcasting Corporation, an Iranian television station, come back and report after an airstrike. That shows a huge level of resolve. But the decapitation of military leadership, while it's not going to overthrow the regime at this moment, they're not going to overthrow the Iranian government at this moment, it marks a significant challenge that Iran faces, which is they are heavily infiltrated. And while they're working on this and they are working to stamp out whatever Mossad and Israeli intelligence infiltration has occurred. It appears that it is quite significant and will have an impact on the length and the trajectory of this conflict. But at this moment, Iran is defending itself. It is fighting back. It is not on the verge or the brink of falling. And now it's all about what does the chaotic, the confused, the panicked, and the absolutely warmongering administration of Donald Trump, what it is going to do as we move into the next phase of not only Operation True Promise 3, but of course this war on Iran that seeks to change the regime and attack all of the multipolar world in the process. Because remember, I've been saying it since the very beginning, the road from Libya to Syria, and of course all the regime change operations that the US and Israel have been a part of, the Gaza genocide, everything that has happened in the region, all of it points to the destruction of Russia, China, and Iran in the final analysis. And now Project Iran, is in full swing.